Hello there. It really is me, Titan Nerd 68. I felt like doing a little aesthetic change. So, here's that aesthetic change. I assure you I won't be doing this for my next video, which hopefully I will shoot and upload tomorrow or day after. Soon, basically. Since that will involve reading from something that's not on my computer. Pardon my functional stomach. Yeah, so it's been a while, but I've noticed that I have to shoot a video every now and then, since I started my YouTube channel anyway. Water. Yeah. I promise it's water. I have to upload a video every now and then, or else I will lose control of my bladder at the worst possible times. And since that was starting to happen, that meant it was time to make another video. Now, the title of this video, as you've probably seen, is Hypothetical Deism. I decided to write down my thoughts on how I think I would be if I were a deist, because, well, I find it more honest than theism. Now, for those of you who don't know, deism is, in a nutshell, the belief in God with a capital G, whatever that entity may be, but God is not personal. God doesn't answer prayer. The God of order, as Dr. Michio Kaku refers to it. So, I'll be speaking from a hypothetical perspective. Deistic Charles. Here's how it'll be. Regular Charles will be my voice, but every now and then Deistic Charles will speak, and Deistic Charles is from Australia. I know my accent's not the best, and to be fair, my voice is a little hoarse right now. I don't know if you can tell, but that's why I have the water. Plus, I'm just plain thirsty. So, when I'm laying out those views, just assume that every facet of this guy, is the same, personality-wise, sense of humor, personal tastes, etc., except for his worldview, his beliefs and disbeliefs. So here goes. Okay, here we go. Now, if I were a believer, I'd probably be an agnostic deist. But for the record, this will be mostly read from what I wrote. I find it to be one of the more honest alternatives to theism, and of course I wouldn't go around pretending I know my chosen entity exists. In fact, it's the lack of evidence for any deity that keeps me from identifying as deist. But if I did, I would probably tell people that I believe my chosen entity, which, by the way, I will be calling God with a capital G, simply triggered the expansion from singularity that we call the Big Bang, and went to make a bowl of popcorn and get a beer so it could sit back and watch a show called Life in This Universe. By the way, and I say it because I don't believe that God is a mere he or she. And I think we all know what happens. I think we know that engendering deities is really just a way of making them more human, and, well, we know what happens when our deities become too human. But anyway, I think it's safe to... I put it like that because I think it's safe to assume that some form of life exists in this universe. Possibly. Okay, I wasn't making sense with that last sentence. Okay, never mind. Okay, so now in order to show I'd probably be Deistic Charles, maybe you've heard Bill Maher say, "I believe in God, but I give God more credit than most people do." Now, I find, personally, as I stated earlier, it's the lack of evidence that keeps me from identifying as a deist, and to an extent, I feel, anyway, as if I'd still be suspending my natural rationality and toning down my bullshit detector in regards to defending my chosen deity, which kind of puts me in the same camp as a few theists, and, well, that little thing doesn't sit well with me, real Charles. And I'd be willing to bet that at some point Deistic Charles might see the disconnect and eventually identify as atheist like real Charles, and boom, Here we go again, back in this timeline with me, the guy you know best. But even if I were a theist, I still think I'd probably give God more credit than most. You know, if I were a Christian, I can see myself as being the agnostic kind who foregoes church and opts instead to just read his Bible on his own time and get on with his life. I mean, I'm not going to worship I'm not going to worship an entity. That means that entity is insecure. And if you're in charge of the universe, I don't think you can really afford to be insecure, do you? And if Yahweh is as perfect as they claim he is, he doesn't need us boosting his ego. What was it that Graydon Square said again? If he's all that you say, he is, he probably negates his own existence. Yeah. Of course, I wouldn't evangelize either. I've always found that rather arrogant, and I'm the sort of person who, for the most part, is going to keep that sort of thing to himself anyway. Yeah, I know. I'm expressing it here. You don't have to watch, right? And, of course, I don't care what someone else believes, because my stance is God. We know I'm not talking about Yahweh, is decent enough to objectively measure your deeds and misdeeds and repay them fairly. I'm sure I'd probably acknowledge the human origins of the Bible based on factual errors and teachings that are rather barbaric, if you'll pardon the expression. And look up the word barbaric if you don't know why I said it like that. But in the end, I'd still be reading the Bible with a skeptical mind. So I think I'd be a lot like Ken Miller. Maybe you've heard of him. He's a scientist who identifies as a Catholic, but has done a lot of work on evolution. Look him up if you're unfamiliar. So yeah, in short, if I were a theist, I'd probably still apply some degree of logic to my beliefs. I'd keep it all in perspective, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if I still walk down the same path and end up as the guy you sort of see here, the guy you hear here right now. And yeah, I realize that was a bit of a tangent, but it's kind of relevant. So let's get back to the original idea. So, I suppose deistic Charles would say that an outside force, your guess of its origins are as good as mine, your guess about its origins is as good as mine, came by and set the Big Bang in motion, triggered the expansion roughly 13.5 billion years ago, and, well, we all know the rest. Obviously, I'm aware of evolution and abiogenesis, because I don't think God would have a favorite planet, but if he did play favorites, why Earth? Again, like Bill Maher, I'm giving God more credit than most. I don't believe in prayer, because I'm just one person of a fuck-ton who have walked this planet, so why should God have any interest in me, of all people? And besides, a number of prayers are self-fulfilling. When I was a kid, I did pray for things that nowadays I would simply do without a second thought. But, if praying to your chosen entity, be it Yahweh or Wotan or Zeus, or the guitar autographed by Eddie Van Halen that your dad keeps in the attic, if that's what gives you the necessary boost of confidence that you need before approaching, say, a math test, well, go ahead and pray to who or whatever you like. That's your choice, doesn't affect me, and, well, I just don't care. It's not something I would do because, of course, I acknowledge the roughly 50-50 rate of success, but in short, I say pray if you like, but don't jade yourself. Just keep things in perspective. And again, I don't believe God is looking out for me either, because again, I'm one person of many, and for the most part, I can take care of myself. And besides, why would you want your deity to look out for you? Can't you take care of yourself? I know some people require other people to live with them and assist them in their daily tasks, but last time I checked, that's not the majority of the population, and as of now anyway, I'm not one of those people. I can take care of myself. I have a basic knowledge of where danger is likely to be, and I'm the kind of person who, if and when able, will learn all I can about a situation before I get involved, so I can have some semblance of a plan. I know that might sound kind of weird if you know me personally, but I'm really that kind of guy. And speaking of plans, God doesn't have one. And yeah, I know some say they're deity, although from what I've heard it's always been Yahweh, has a meticulously constructed plan for every little intricate happening in this world. I'm not sure if I ever bought into that idea, and I'm not sure if I ever bought into that idea. But I don't believe in the divine plan because there's no evidence to support even the possibility of an idea. Everything seems to fall into place. Well, that's just the way it is. Why would God go around putting things in place? I believe in a neutral deity that doesn't get involved around here or anywhere else. I mean, let's say the train's late. But because of that, you find yourself getting to chat with the person of your dreams, and before long you have a date, and one date turns into three, and 3 dates turns into an engagement, which turns into years of happy marriage, and you say, "Oh, it's all in God's plan, that day at the train station, that's why we've been so happily married." Well, you met your spouse because the train was late. Personally, I think it's kind of arrogant to think that God, who or whatever that is to you, took the time out of his, her, or its 1,000-year day just to help you get laid, essentially. And yeah, I know that's my personal view, but I stand by it. I don't believe in the afterlife either. At one point I did believe in an afterlife, but I believed in an image that I imagined one day, most likely out of boredom, but probably just because I have that kind of mind, and it's something else altogether. But anyway, what evidence is there of an afterlife? Everyone who's ever been there is dead! Last time I checked, dead men tell no tales. Sad ones write them down. My take on heaven and hell is very much like Ronnie James Dio's. They're simply states of mind, influenced by how you view your life and how you deal with the way other people treat you. So don't make someone else's life a hell, unless that's what you want for yourself. Remember the golden rule. I don't believe in divine judgment either. Oh, well, yeah, it fits into the heaven and hell bit. But I just don't buy any sort of divine judgment, before or after death. And Marcus Aurelius said, "Live a good life. If they are gods and they are just, then they will not care about how devout you have been, but will welcome you based on the virtues you have lived by. If they are gods but unjust, then you should not want to worship them. If there are no gods, then you will be gone, but will have lived a noble life that will live on in the memories of your loved ones." I'm sure you've heard that quotation, or something like it, and I'm sure you'd agree that a decent deity would operate in that kind of fashion. Now, when I was younger, I said that, and this is a few years younger, by the way, I said that what matters most is how you think of yourself. And to an extent, I still stand by that, but I've realized a few more things, having grown a little bit older. Although, to be fair, it's been a gap of about 4 years since I first thought that. Or at least since I can first recall thinking that. To paraphrase someone I once heard, the actions and inactions don't matter as much as the reactions to them. Maybe you know who I'm referencing. And if you ask me now, I would say that how you see yourself is certainly important in your life, and what matters in the long run is how others see you. You want to be remembered fondly, right? Of course, how you're remembered will either be dishonest or honest, with a few shades of gray. And when someone tells me about myself, I always ask myself if the person has reasonable grounds upon which to state the claim. If they have adequate reasoning, then I'll probably agree, because for the most part I can be honest with myself and own up to my shortcomings. Though I will admit I can exaggerate them at times, but again, nobody's perfect. But, of course, if they don't have adequate reasoning, I'm not going to get upset because, well, what they're saying is inadequately reasoned. It might as well be a lie. And I'm not going to let somebody else's lie about me ruin my day. Oh, you're going to tell a lie about me? Well, you're the one who's going to be known as a rumor mill. Congratulations. Hope you're remembered well. But remember, heaven and hell are in your head, and you can turn hell into heaven. But, again, as usual, keep things in perspective. Water break. We're back. Now, if you know me personally, you almost undoubtedly know this. If you've watched my videos, if you've watched a lot of my videos, you might have learned this, and yeah, Ronnie James Dio is my biggest hero. And in the description, I've linked an interview that I love where he talks about his stance on religion. Maybe you've seen it. And if you have, then at this point you've probably gathered that, like I said earlier, I pretty much agree with him. As he said, it's there in the song. The world is full of kings and queens who blind your eyes and steal your dreams. They'll tell you black is really white. The moon is just the sun at night, and when you walk in golden halls, you'll get to keep gold that falls. It's heaven and hell. But you know, that's bribery. You know, walk down the golden hall of your chosen dogma. Your chosen deity will reward you with the gold that falls, but remember, you have to follow the rules. So here, start on the first page of Genesis. You are the mule, the gold is the carrot, wink wink nudge nudge, and the stick behind you is hell. The furnace, whatever you want, or eternal torment because you freely chose the wrong option, however, whatever you've been told it is, however you see it. In other words, it's a Hobson's choice, which is to say a choice that's not really a choice at all. Love my God, lest ye face his eternal wrath. Yeah, he is a great guy, isn't he? But again, it's what people do to you and how you deal with it. That's heaven and hell. And anytime I'm in hell, I try to inject a little heaven into it, but I'll try to keep it in perspective, too. But again, you know, I'm only human. Sometimes I'm going to have trouble both ways. I'm sure you can relate. And as Dio said in the interview, as well as We Rock, it all ends up being pretty much the same thing at the end of the day. Remember, we pray to someone, but when it's said and done, it's really all the same with just a different name. So, I know you and I may have our differences in beliefs and disbeliefs, but I'd be willing to bet that we both believe, essentially, a newborn is a blank slate, and as it grows up and learns about the world, it learns that it has a choice between what is called good and what is called evil. Mostly for itself, but also to an extent for everyone around it, based on what it chooses for itself. So, make a choice. And before you do so, if you can, stop and consider the consequences. What implications are going to follow? Is this choice going to be worth it in the long run? I know that, you know, sometimes you've got to make a decision on the fly, but, yeah, as much as I can, I try to think it out. So as I said, I guess I'm not really all that different from real Charles, except for what I believe, but like he said, I'd probably end up becoming like him simply from analyzing what I believe and why I believe it. The two of us both acknowledge evolution as fact because there's evidence to back it up. We acknowledge continental drift, for example, because there's evidence to back it up. And we both happen to accept abiogenesis because, well, last time I checked, there's not quite as much evidence supporting it as there is for evolution or continental drift. Again, my own research. But, well, there's certainly more evidence for it than there is for creationism. And, yeah, I do believe in God, but as I admit, I did somewhat invent God, but it's not like I believe in Yahweh or Amun-Ra or Wotan or Zeus or the countless other deities to have ever been imagined. So, once again, you know, Charles and I are both atheists, except I go one God further. That makes me a consistent atheist when you think about it. And I'm sure that if deistic Charles realizes he's suspending his rationality on everything but that one little deity, like a lot of theists do, well, he's kind of doing the same thing they are, and except he's being a little more honest, since he's not expecting the universe to look out for him. But again, upon realizing that this one thing doesn't meet its burden of proof, not that he'd go around claiming he knows something he doesn't, again, he's still me, but he realized he has no real reason to believe in it, and, well, the jump to atheism isn't very far, is it? So in closing, ask yourself why you believe what you believe, why do you refute what you refute, on what grounds do you place your beliefs, and remember, be honest and stay in perspective. That's all for this video. Didn't take as long as I was thinking it would, that's good. You know how long-winded I can be. And just to avoid dragging this out, let me say that, I think I'll get the first part of my next little series started right when I finish with this one. So ride the tiger, join the heavy metal fight. Have a good time of day. What you call good, that is. Orange, rock on.